What's going on, fam? Welcome back to the channel. This is another 1 month review, this time of the 11 Pro Toni Kroos remake. I really like these boots, but they're not gonna be in my training and game rotation, and today I'm gonna tell you guys why. So we're gonna start today with the sole plate of this football boot. Now, this is the same sole plate that we find on the Nemesis line. This is the same sole plate that we also find on the Copa Pure 2 and Copa Pure 1. This is the torsion frame from Adidas. Now, I really like this sole plate. In my 1 month review of the Copa Pure, the original one, the 1, I mentioned a lot about how I loved the fact that it's quite a lot more rigid. It's a lot more speed frame type, not just Adidas speed frame, but very much speed boot-esque in the way that it operates underfoot, especially when you're playing on natural grass pitches like the one behind me or the one that I'm on right now, plus artificial ground. The half moon shaped studs do a really nice job of gripping into the ground, and for just an overall pleasant feeling underfoot with kind of no weird gimmicks other than the fact that it's got a really nice rigid midfoot here, so you don't get a lot of stiffness or less bending in the midfoot, I guess you could say. This does do a really nice job underfoot of providing a nice aggressive ability for you to have traction and also to push off. So for me, the sole plate of this football boot is gonna get an 8 out of 10. Heel area for the 11 Pro is, I would say, fairly average. It's really comfortable, but once you get into more performance type scenarios where you really have to cut hard or it gets wet outside, your feet get sweaty, whatever, there is a little bit of rotational slippage in the heel area, at least I found, going this direction. There is a suede liner, so it does do a nice job of locking your foot in, but as I said, once it gets wet, it gets a little bit more difficult to provide that really, really nice, crisp lockdown that you're looking for in a performance boot. In addition, it is pretty floppy. As you guys can see, the heel area is quite, it lacks a lot of structure. The heel counter only goes up about halfway, which usually I'm pretty okay with. My only thing is because it's a lot wider here in the top of this area of the heel, it doesn't wrap your foot as much as I would like and I prefer. So again, with these 1 month reviews, a lot of this is gonna be subjective, but for the most part, I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10 for the heel area. The upper of this particular remake is okay. And the reason I say it's okay is because when I got it out of the box, I was expecting it to be the most premium kangaroo leather, all this stuff, like unbelievable. But when I took it out of the box, I was kind of like, huh, this feels a little bit like a Gloro. Like it feels a little bit, probably a step above a Gloro, but it does feel, I don't know, kind of lackluster. Like the leather's fine, it is soft, it does feel pretty nice underfoot, but it's not the premium feel I was looking for compared to when I saw my friend Henry's boots, which are the actual Kroos remakes with the German flag and his actual size and the sole plate difference. Those are premium K leather, whereas these I believe are calfskin leather. And for me, for a remake, I'm glad they made these. The concept behind why they went with a more modern sole plate, which they have a lot of apparently, plus a upper that was a little bit easier to manufacture potentially and made the boots a little bit less expensive, even though that didn't really do anything on the resale market. Unfortunately, this boot just didn't live up to the hype as far as the upper goes, and so for me that's a little bit disappointing. Again, is it a nice all-around just comfy leather football boot to walk around in and train in? Yeah, but does it lack a little bit of that premium specialness that you really want in a boot like this, that's not only an iconic color, but an iconic silo that so many people wore back in the day? That's what I was kind of looking for in this football boot, and it didn't really deliver in that department. So for me, this is gonna get a 7 out of 10 for the upper. Lockdown of the 11 Pro is where I think this struggles the most. This is one of the categories that received the lowest rating in my testing. I did get a chance to wear it in full training sessions. I wore it in both Flower City sessions and in personal sessions. You guys saw the one-on-one with Henry. I'll link that video down below in the description box below, where I wore it for obviously the entire entire session, wore it in individual stuff, so I got a pretty good sense of what this was like to perform, and the lockdown category is really meant to test whether this is going to be viable in a competitive setting. If you're not a pro, it doesn't matter. If you're not a semi-pro, it doesn't matter. Mostly, I'm just looking to provide the information about the performance of the football boot, which will come in a later, like an overall performance rating will come later, but the lockdown is really important to me because when I'm doing really tight turns or I'm marking somebody one-on-one and I need to make that really quick step somewhere, and I'm sure a lot of you guys as players as well really appreciate lockdown because slippage can get not only uncomfortable, it hurts your performance, and it also potentially can lead to injuries that are really unnecessary and obviously very unfortunate. And that is just kind of an annoying thing. And blisters, obviously, that's the whole reason lockdown exists, is for blisters, right? So for me, that's where this one really struggled. The upper, as I said before in the previous section, the upper is fine. It's not great. There really isn't much structural lockdown. You have the 3 stripes, but that's kind of the same fake leather, faux leather material, and they don't go into the side of the sole plate, which means they don't really hug your foot like some Adidas stripes we've seen in the past that have come up and out of the sole plate in a way that when you tie the laces tight really wraps your foot. You don't get that on these, including the slippage I found in the heel area. So for me, overall rating for lockdown of these football boots is going to be a 6 out of 10. Break-in time for this football boot is kind of as you would expect. Not a whole lot of structural stuff, fully leather, even if it's calf leather, and a fairly unstructured upper for the most part really makes for a pretty good break-in time. I had very, very little time. The only kind of place where this took a little bit more break-in time was right here on the side of these football boots. That's fairly normal for me. As most of you guys know, I have quite wide feet kind of down here in a little awkward area, and my foot is widest like in the middle part of the shoe, and so it kind of gives me a little bit of hot spots on most football boots and actually prevents me from wearing other football boots like the Vapor or something full time, where I do really like those boots, but I just can't wear them because they literally don't fit my foot. So from this perspective, this is gonna get a really good rating for break-in time. I would expect most foot types to fit in these, and for break-in time, it gets an 8 out of 10. Durability and build quality of the 11 Pro is gonna get a fairly good rating, fairly average, fairly good rating. I've worn them on different surfaces, so I've worn them on both grass and artificial ground, and on artificial ground, which is usually the hardest on boots usually absolutely get shredded on AG. These did pretty well. I found that after a while, it didn't feel like there was any reason why the boot would split. There weren't any areas of the boot as I was feeling them after training when they were super wet after a rainy session or anything like that, where I felt like they got kind of weak in certain areas. That being said, with the lack of lockdown and some of the slippage issues I had, I did find that overall its ability to be durable just didn't feel as robust of a football boot as I would potentially expect from a boot that was built off of, you know, the silo of something that Toni Kroos still wears. Potentially he prefers that and they just fit his foot perfectly. Yes, I know he probably gets custom fitted football boots, yada, 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 whatever. But a boot like this, I would kind of expect to be a little bit more premium, robust feeling. And as far as build quality goes, I expect these will probably take a beating if you wore them on AG quite a bit. Henry's pair of 11 Pros had a little bit of splitting in them, and those were the ones that were the actual German, you know, made in Germany remakes, the actual Toni Kroos ones. These ones, I don't have any areas of these particular boots that have been split at all, even though I've worn them quite a bit. They look super, super clean right now because I wore them on natural grass in the rain recently, so they clean really well, which is also a great sign. But for durability and sort of that build quality perspective, it's gonna get a 7.5 out of 10. Shape and fit for the 11 Pro is, I think, where this boot shines. Because of the way this boot is constructed, I've talked about this in previous parts of this video, the shape is very moldable to whatever foot shape you have. As you can see, it's kind of been blown out, or maybe this is a better example. You can see kind of where I've blown the upper and stretched the upper a little bit over the sides of the sole plate. Usually I don't recommend that much, but for somebody like me who really understands, what I need in a boot, what I want in a boot from a performance perspective, I don't really mind that little spillage over the side of the sole plate. That being said, I would expect most foot types to fit in here. It's gonna take a little bit longer to break in if you have super, super wide feet, but this toe box area will stretch quite a bit, which is awesome for those of you who have wider toe boxes. And as I said before, the heel area does do a pretty nice job of stretching no matter what type of heel you have, whether you have a wider heel or a thinner heel like me. I think you're gonna be totally fine. So for me, the heel area not the heel area, but the overall shape and fit of this football boot, once it's broken in, 8.5 out of 10. So from a competition perspective, I'm gonna compare this to kind of two different categories of boots. One is the actual leather football boots on the market, and the other one is sort of those Puma King Ultimate Tiempo 10 boot wannabes, which I don't really think those are part of the competition. I would wear this over both of those in a heartbeat, not only because they fit better for my feet and I can wear them for a longer period of time, but also because I just think these are cooler just in general. So those are gonna actually be a step above the Tiempo 10 and Puma not Future Ultimate, the King Ultimate. But from a leather to leather perspective, these compete with, honestly, mostly Adidas boots. Their current Copa line, the Gloro line, that kind of sits in between those as far as quality and if you just look at an objective build quality, these kind of sit between they're above a Gloro as far as, weight and kind of performance goes, but they're, I think, below especially the Copa Pure 2 Plus, which is the one that has that knit in the midfoot and the lacing system. I think those boots are very good from a performance lockdown. It's got it really covers all the bases. I actually think those boots are really fantastic. So for me, this is gonna get sort of mid-tier rating, I would say, from the color and the specialness of this football boot, just from what it represents. Again, as I said, it disappointed it a little bit on the way that these fit and feel and the lockdown and all that stuff. But I would say this is second for me, right below the Copa Pure 2 Plus, as far as kind of the main competitors to this. You could throw in Mizuno models if you wanted, but Mizuno models are gonna be above even the Copa Pure 2 Plus for me, just because like the Morelia 2 blows this out of the water and it's a fully K leather upper, even though it's kind of a more classic sole plate and more of a classic fit and feel. Those are just objectively better than these. And so for me, this is a situation where these kind of fall mid to upper tier as far as all the leather boots on the market go. Performance of the 11 Pro, overall performance it's okay. I find that pinging a football boot feels really nice. It, touch on the ball feels really nice. Settling the ball, juggling the ball, doing just basic touches on the football feel really, really nice, as you would expect with kind of any quality of leather, especially when it is quite soft once you break it in. But just from a performance perspective, as I said in the intro to the video, I just don't think this is gonna make any of my sort of mainstay boots as far as training or games go for my new teams. And so for me, it's just gonna lack a little bit in that category. And for me, overall performance gets a 6.5 out of 10. Overall, the 11 Pro is an awesome remake. It just is. It's really cool. It's got an awesome colorway. It's got a great heritage. I understand that this isn't an exact one-to-one remake, but I think if companies maybe did a better job of updating and making like a one-to-one and then a slightly lower version, that kind of makes sense to me. I understand why Adidas would want to a little bit more mass produce this particular model and then do a really limited run of the actual Toni Kroos remakes. That does make sense to me, but at the same time, it's like, the whole point of you doing that remake was to make the Toni Kroos ones, so why wouldn't you just make the Toni Kroos ones in all the different sizes? So I don't know. That, for me, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Overall rating is gonna be a 7 out of 10 for these 11 Pros. I do think they're cool football boots. I do think they're, kind of special, but if somebody came in and was like, hey, I'll pay you $300 for a gently, boots that have been used for a month, I would probably sell them because they're just not that special to me. I'm not a person who has avidly watched Toni Kroos. He's an absolutely amazing player. Of course, he's world class. That being said, this boot just doesn't hit really for me. I think the actual 11 Pros, like if you had the actual 11 Pro on your foot, they would be better than these in every conceivable way. So I'd rather just go and pay the 300 or 400 bucks for a pair of those than buy another pair of these, if that makes sense. And there are plenty of other leather football boots, including the Adler boots, including the Morelias, including from Mizuno, including even the Copa Pure 2 line that I'd rather wear over these. So for me, this is gonna be that 7 out of 10. It's fine, but I wish it was kind of better. Like I was sort of expecting something better for a boot that demanded the resale price that this one did. So if you guys enjoyed that 1 month review, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm going to leave a link down below for not only the training session video that I did with Henry for these, but I'm also gonna leave a link down below for my website. You guys can find free workout programs on there that you guys can use on your off seasons. I know a lot of players are on off season right now. You're trying to figure out what your next team is gonna look like, especially for those of you who are in the pro level, and for those of you who are in high school or in college, this is also an off season. So go and check out those off season programs, totally free. Just type in your email, you get an email to link, you get a full, basically you get a free access to a private YouTube playlist that gives you all example exercises in case you don't know what certain things are, and that's there for you guys for free, as I said before. So as always, be awesome, take care. I'll see you guys in the next video.